but I got to meet and greet a few people. I did some 3 shows. I did a show at the Improv, did a show at the Laugh Factory, and another show at the Improv. I love both those clubs. Obviously, the Improv, I don't know if I've talked about it. I've talked about it in the past. The Improv is my club. That's my home club. No matter what other places I perform at, no matter what other places I've been to, that'll always be my spot. I was going there as a kid, as a teenager. My half-sister's stepfather was one of the owners of the Improv. And in 1983, probably around August of 1983, I had gotten kicked out of summer camp. So I didn't have anything to do. My father sent me to California to stay with my sister, Claudia. And she said, come to the club. And I was like, I didn't know what the hell she was talking about. I'm 13. I'm in a club. And she took me to the Improv. And I went to the Improv for the very first time in about August of 1983. And the same Improv, the same setup for the most part. She took me in the back of the club. I remember the first time I was ever in a comedy club, the first person I ever saw on a comedy club stage was Keenan Ivory Wayans. Keenan Wayans was on the stage. Keenan had hair at the time. He had on camouflage pants and I think a green shirt. And I remember that he had on the camouflage pants because I remember he was doing a TV show at the time, some sort of drama or dramedy. And I remember recognizing him from the show, looking like he had the show wardrobe on. I would spend so much time there that summer, and then I would go back, Christmas time, holiday time, I'd go back in the summers, and then I moved to California to live with my sister and her mom, my half-sister and her mom. In 1986, I went to Fairfax High School. I went to Fairfax High School for a year because I was in so much trouble. Every single year I was getting kicked out of school and I had crazy hoop dreams. I wanted to be in the NBA and I went to Fairfax High School and played on the same well, they were on the varsity, but we played together. Sean Higgins, who played at Michigan, their championship team. Chris Mills, who had a great career in the NBA. They were in the school and we played. Those are my guys. I played with them all the time and the rest of the basketball team. And would still always go around the Improv, and I would see everybody performing there, everybody performing in the 80s at the Improv. I mean, when I say everybody, I mean Jay Leno, young Jerry Seinfeld, Larry David when he had the hair, Joan Rivers. I mean, Eddie Murphy would come in there. I never saw Eddie Murphy on the stage. Every single time that Eddie Murphy was performing at the OG original Improv on Melrose, I would somehow miss it. And I'd hear about the next day, and I'd be like, because Eddie Murphy was 1985, 86, Eddie Murphy was the dude. And there were no other dudes. It was just Eddie Murphy. You're talking like a rock star. It was like Michael Jackson, Madonna, Bruce Springsteen, Billy Joel, Eddie Murphy. Like he was literally in that category. Like those were all singers. And then it was Eddie Murphy. He was that big of a ginormous star at the time. Like I said, I saw Jay Leno, Gary Shandling would be in there, Robert Townsend, who obviously went on to direct Hollywood Shuffle, Arsenio Hall, who I've talked about a lot on the podcast, and he babysat me. And Arsenio Hall, I told the story before, but Arsenio Hall babysat me. It wasn't a baby. It was like 13, 14 years old, but he took me to a Laker game. I went to a Laker game in 1980. Might have been 1983, that winter when I came back. He was good friends with Magic Johnson. When he did the Arsenio Hall show, Magic Johnson, he'd come on the show all the time. And he took me to the old Forum. Arsenio Hall took me to the old Forum. And I was with Jerry Buss before the game. And we were like in the Forum Club. And we were at a dinner. And literally Muhammad Ali was eating next to me. I was eating dinner with Muhammad Ali. I was bugging. I was out of my mind. And we watched the game, and then after the game, went in the locker room. He took me in the locker room, and I met Magic Johnson, met Baron Scott, met Kareem. Well, Kareem was, kind of to himself, but, I was like in there, the old Forum, with like the caged lockers that you see like in all the highlights. I was in there. It was crazy. Anyway, I started doing comedy. I came back to California in 89. I started doing comedy, and when I started actually doing comedy in 1989, they would put up like, nobodies they'd throw them up there like different people and stuff like that. And I did 5 minutes, and then I did 10 minutes, and then a couple of times after I my first few times I was doing comedy, I was on stage and they were giving me like 8 minutes or I don't know 7 minutes. I don't remember what the time was. It was 10 minutes or some shit. Like I had no act. I just would talk a lot. And the casting director for a TV show called China Beach, John Levy, his name was John Levy. He was there with his son, and his son was like, you should put that guy on China Beach. He's funny. And then I had an agent at the time. I got an agent. It doesn't matter. I could tell you how I got an agent another time. But anyway, China Beach was a big show on ABC. It was a big show. It was like a procedure show. It was kind of like ER. It took place in a Vietnam hospital. This is 1989 or this is 1990. So it was like an ER show. You remember the ER with George Clooney and Noah Wyle? And I got called in to do an audition for China Beach. It was my second audition, the second audition I ever did. And it was like 12 lines on China Beach. And I got called in because the casting director, like I said, saw me doing comedy. And I went and auditioned at Warner Brothers, which was like, yo, you're going on the Warner Brothers lot to do an audition. Like, I'm gonna be a star. Like, you don't know, I'm like bugging, like I'm tripping. I'm like, I'm walking in Warner Brothers and you're seeing like the signs and the posters and, Batman and Jack Nicholson posters. And I remember and all that. And I wound up getting the part on China Beach, which was starring actress Dana Delaney, and it was a big show. And I was like, that's it. I'm a fucking actor. I'm going to be an actor, and that is it. And I cried when I got the part for China Beach. I literally cried when I got the part for China Beach. I could not believe it. I was so relieved that I finally found something that I might be good at, because as I've talked about in the past, so much I wanted to be in the NBA, and I was never as good as I wanted to be. But when I got China Beach in 1990, just the relief that like maybe I had a future as a young adult who could make a living. A week or two later, I was on the set of China Beach, and I never forget the actor Raymond Cruz, who is totally recognizable. Raymond Cruz, actor who was in Training Day. He was in Better Call Saul. He was in Breaking Bad. He was the gangster. He always plays gangsters, and he's such a nice dude. This dude, Raymond Cruz, who you totally recognize. He was in Training Day. He wasn't like the main gangster in Training Day at that scene with Ethan Hawke. He was like the homeboy. He was like, you ever had your shit pushed in? He was like, I had more shit pushed in. Raymond was also in China Beach, and he had already acted a little bit. He kind of took me under his wing, and he had just started out, but he was really cool with me. But Raymond Cruz, my man, was in my first, show that I ever got the opportunity to do. And every time I see him, I'm like, China Beach. And he's like, China Beach. And that was really, really, really crazy. But that was the first role that I ever got. And whenever I'm performing at the Improv, none of those memories go away. I'm always thinking about this or thinking about that, because like I said, the Improv is still the same Improv. It's the same architecture. It's the same bar. It's a lot of the same, wood, and it's the same setup. And I spent so many nights at the Improv before I was even thinking about being a comic, just wandering around there like a 13, 14, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, just, hanging out, really not... I wasn't even interested in comedy. Like I said, I wanted to be in the NBA. But then when I, switched when I was about 17, 18, I was like, I want to be a comedy. I want to be the next Eddie Murphy. I went from wanting to be in the NBA to wanting to be the next Eddie Murphy. It was like two fucking bad dreams that I never reached. But, it got me on track, and I wound up being the one and only disruptive warrior, Michael Rapaport. But that's my story of how I got China Beach. My very, very second audition, I got the part of China Beach, got the part for China Beach at the Improv from doing comedy. And a crazy thing about China Beach, this is a really bugged out part of China Beach and what it meant to me. And this is a true story. When I was doing True Romance, which I believe was co-produced or co-financed by Warner Brothers. I know it wasn't a complete Warner Brothers film, but it was like co-financed or co-produced by Warner Brothers. We were shooting the scene when I got the part. Dick Ritchie got the part in True Romance to be on TJ Hooker. It was Brad Pitt, Christian Slater, is Patricia Arquette in that scene? I think she's in that scene, but I know it's Brad Pitt, Christian Slater. Pretty sure Patricia Arquette is in the scene. We're on the set, and there's all these movie posters on the set for the apartment of Dick Ritchie and Floyd, and in between takes, I'm sifting through like the set, and there's like scripts and all that stuff, and I see scripts for China Beach, and I'm shooting the scene in True Romance where Dick Ritchie gets his first part for TJ Hooker, and God is my witness, I'm seeing stacks of scripts for China Beach, and I'm going through them, and I found my script for my episode of China Beach while we were shooting that scene in True Romance. And I remember showing it to Tony Scott. And Tony Scott, may his memory be a blessing, was such a great director and so encouraging to me, and got such a kick out of all the shit that I didn't know what I was doing, but he was so like, keep doing that, don't do that, keep asking. Yeah, I remember he kept saying, keep asking questions, kid. And he had his accent, keep asking questions, kid. And it was so encouraging as a young actor. But I remember I was like, yo, this is the episode of China Beach that I did my first role that I ever got, which was crazy because I was playing Dick Ritchie, and it was like his first role that he ever got in TJ Hooker. But I'll never, ever, ever forget that. I'll never, ever forget those times and those memories and those opportunities, because it's like when I see that guy, Raymond Cruz, the actor Raymond Cruz, who I mentioned, it's like we went through something together. Although it wasn't his first thing, it's like you remember those special times when you're first starting out, when you're starting to accomplish your dreams and your goals. They're so vivid and so rich. And there was no cameras, there's no selfies, there's no, yo, I'm on the set, just like etched in your brain, things you can never forget.
I am Rapaport Podcast.